Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Breaking Voices. I am your host, Harold, and today we have a very special guest, former Minister of Fisheries in Prince Edward Island, Mr. Jamie Fox. Jamie, welcome to Breaking Voices, and wherever you are around the world, you can download to Spotify or from Spotify, Apple, and Google. It's all free. And today the topic is about the economy, a bit about politics, a little about what's happening in Canada. And Jamie, as you well, some of you would know in Prince Edward Island, has done a tremendous job across this beautiful island, well known across this province. And Jamie is going to tell you a little about himself, his background, and where he planned to go into the future. So, Jamie, take it from there, my friend.
Sure. Thank you, Harold. Yes, you're right. I am
Welcome.
yeah, thanks. My career spans actually over 40 years. I was a police officer serving in 3 provinces, and I ended up finishing policing in Prince Edward Island as the chief of police in the regional municipality of Borden Carleton. And then during that time, my wife and I built 2 Esso service stations, one in the province of Prince Edward Island and one in the province of New Brunswick. So I have a small business background also. And then I've been involved in politics now for the last close to 12 years and been elected 3 times for the province of Prince Edward Island in the district of Borden Kincora. And then also now I've resigned from provincial politics. I am now the official candidate for the riding of Malpeque in the next federal election for the Conservative Party of Canada.
Congratulations, man. That's a big move.
Mm.
So, Jamie, tell us a little bit about probably the economy of PEI, and then we probably would look at probably overall Canada itself. What's happening with respect to the economy and what's happening in the direction of the country?
Right now, I would say we're in tough economical times. Prince Edward Island is an island off the east of New Brunswick and just a little bit west and north of the province of Nova Scotia. We're the smallest province in the country. We have a population of around 180,000 people, and everything that we consume or require basically all has to come in by 2 modes of transportation, one by a ferry system at the eastern end of the island or by the Confederation Bridge. So we're subject to a lot of transportation costs when it comes to stuff going to your hardware store or stuff going to your grocery store. So with that, it's all subject to the price of fuel being factored in there and then getting the product to the island. So what we're experiencing right now is due to the high cost of transportation under the carbon tax and the clean fuel regulations, this is adding an extra burden onto the consumer and islanders for what they pay for everyday goods. And then also we have, of course, the high interest rates now. We were enjoying low interest rates, but over the last several years, we're now up into the high 5s and high 7%, which is adding a lot of economical strain on people's wallets when it comes to their pocketbook, and renewing mortgages is a big thing too. So economically, things are tough. There's no question about that. People are making sacrifices, and I hear that every day from islanders, and a change is required.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the polls, it's telling you something very differently from the last couple of years, and it looked like the conservative government is ahead in the polls across Canada.
Mm. Yeah. People don't understand, like, where, and you know where I live, Harold. In rural PEI, it doesn't matter if I have to go to the grocery store or take the kids to, and I don't have any kids right now, but for a family that has to take kids to a hockey or sporting events or to Charlottetown, Summerside, they have to travel. So we just can't jump on a subway or take a bicycle or take transit when you live in different rural places. So there's a burden there that's being applied, in my opinion, unfairly across the country as it applies to the carbon tax, and how it punishes you if you do not live in an area where there's actually a transportation system.
Yeah, I got you. I mean, it's really expensive across this island today. I mean, you go to the grocery stores, you can realize that how expensive the food is, and people are complaining across the island.
Yeah, for sure. It's all right to come out with policies, but you got to make sure the policy fits the different areas of the country, and that's one thing that the carbon tax doesn't do. It doesn't fit rural Canada outside of the large urban centers like Montreal or Toronto or places like that where there is rapid transit system. If I want to go today, if I have to go off island for a doctor's appointment, I have to travel. I have to go across
Hmm.
the Confederation Bridge. If I have to go to Charlottetown for groceries or Summerside for groceries, I have to travel. That's 30 to 40
Hmm.
kilometers. So that all factors into the price we have to pay. But when you tax the farmer with a carbon tax or tax the fisherman with a carbon tax or clean fuel regulations, he has to apply that to his goods because it's an
Right.
input cost to him. And then of course the HST goes on top of that. Well, that gets to the supplier, and then he has to pay a carbon tax or higher tax cost to move the product to the stores or to
Hmm.
Prince Edward Island. So the tax gets added on again. And then, of course, the consumer, um, he has to travel to get it, and he has the HST on top of that again. So what you're seeing is a tax that's quadrupled over the movement of one item or one good.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're totally right that the carbon tax have actually added to the cost of a lot of stuff.
Mm.
Um, Across Canada, people from coast to coast are actually saying that, especially the farmers, that it's going to be a heavy burden onto the prices of food into the
Yeah,
coming future.
yeah, yeah,
Fuel is
you're,
expensive by itself.
yeah, you're right, Harold. Whether you talk with the fisher or the farmer, they have to. We don't have electric tractors. We don't have
Hmm.
electric boats. Um, I was over into Norway a couple of years ago on a government trip, and they were experimenting over there with electric boats, and they were actually
Hmm.
taking the electric boats out of system, taking the system out and putting back in a diesel hybrid
Right.
because the saltwater corrosion was affecting the batteries and so on. Well, in PEI, we don't have the luxury of some of that technology, and it's not even perfected yet. So the farmer, he's bearing the brunt of it, or the fisherman, with the extra fuel costs.
Yeah, I heard you. Well, look, we are talking about carbon, the cost of carbon and everything else, and the relates to the environment. I understand that. But America is now producing a whole lot of oil, even as much as I think the capacity is 12 million barrels of oil per day.
Mm-hmm.
In Canada, we are actually probably going way less than what the projection is. And I couldn't understand that. If the states could do it, then they open up all the oil fields and everything else because they realize that the EV battery system is not working efficiently. As you
Yeah.
know, if you listen to the news lately, they say up to about 33% of dealership can't sell their vehicles.
Mm. Yeah, and Hertz did the other day. They canceled their purchasing of electric vehicles going forward. But I don't think we when we come out with new technology, we must be able to make sure that we can recycle the new technology. And
Yep,
when you
I
look at,
agree.
like when you look at wind turbines or batteries and that kind of stuff, it's great to capture the wind and cut down and use that energy, but we must come up with a way that we can recycle the blades or recycle the batteries. We just can't have them. And what's happening across the world is we're finding um, stockpiles of old turbine blades or batteries that they can't
Yep.
recycle. So what do you do with that? Um, I'm a firm believer. I'm a conservationist. I believe in the environment. I have for many years. I'm totally 100% against the carbon tax. Um, but I think we need to look at other ways to help the environment, like plant trees, improve wetlands, that kind of stuff. There will help, and of course, make petroleum more efficient to use. But I don't understand in some cases, we're against Canadian petroleum products and Canadian marketing our LNG and so on, but we're 100% behind importing dirty oil and dirty gas from other countries. And I think that's something that we need to take a look at. Like, why are we punishing Canadians and Canadian resources and not and accepting resources that aren't done or processed in an environmentally friendly way?
I agree, and I think Germany was here a while back asking for
Yeah.
natural gas, and I don't think we could fulfill the obligation. And I think right now, United States actually filling a part of that gap. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I can bring it home a little bit closer to that. The province of Prince Edward Island, not the government, but some industries wanted to see LNG or propane brought into the province, and Transport Canada blocked it. There is a terminal, an LNG propane terminal just outside of Port Elgin on the way to Allac, which is not more than probably 30 miles away. Presently, right now, we have different companies, Island Gas, that go over, they get that LNG propane mix, they bring it back to PEI, and they're powering, large industries with that. And there's an opportunity to put a pipeline into Prince Edward Island across the Confederation Bridge or outside the Confederation Bridge on hangars, and Transport Canada wouldn't allow it.
Wow.
So, there seems to be one department talks about helping the environment, but yet another department doesn't even want to talk about it or listen to it.
And I couldn't understand this because when you look at Europe itself, Europe is going through a lot of massive issues with respect to cost. And Germany has recently built the new plants for natural gas in record time, right? And a lot of the gas actually is coming from places like Norway and United States. I couldn't understand why Canada cannot, at the same time, export more of our natural product here, which is cost so much cheaper.
Yeah, well, the world wants Canada. The world wants our resources, and we should be working to, extract them resources in an environmentally friendly way, which we're doing right now, and cleaning the soil back up, and supplying the world. But there's the current administration and the federal government is totally against that. And it doesn't make sense. So then on the other hand, then they go and they punish Canadians by taxing us on the petroleum products that we need, as it applies to the carbon or the clean fuel regulations.
And Pierre Poilievre said that the cost of housing, the cost of everything is going up, and it's still expected to go up. I think the triple carbon tax that might be coming downstream.
Yeah, you're right. Like, we need to build homes, and with that, we need to. I've always said that you can't have a population strategy without having an infrastructure strategy.
Right.
And if you're welcoming newcomers into the country or promoting growth in populations, then you must make sure you have an infrastructure strategy that goes with it. Yep. And I take it back to roads. It's as simple as roads. Like, back in the 60s and 70s and the early 80s, when a lot of roads were being built and paved in Prince Edward Island, upgraded, they were designed for transport trucks that were tandems. Now we see transport trucks that are quads and that a lot heavier loads. Well, the roads weren't designed for that, right? So that's why the roads are falling apart, because you've got increased weight on a system that was not designed. So you can take that into our schools, you can take that into our hospitals. If you've got a population growing up to, they're saying right now, predicting Prince Edward Island will be at 200,000 people by, I think it's 2030. You've got to make sure your schools and your hospitals can actually handle that increase, right?
Absolutely. And so the question comes up now is that there's a lack of housing on Prince Edward Island and lack of doctors and nurses. So tell me something about where probably into the future we expect to see an increase in doctors or nurses that could make healthcare more accessible across the island.
Yeah, well, I've always said, we should be looking at the system itself. How many actually doctors and nurses are actually in administrative roles when they could be actually doing frontline service, and I think that's one place to look at. we have business leaders and that should be basically taking care of the business or the administrative function or the HR functions, not a
Right.
registered nurse or a doctor.
Mhm.
I know of cases where doctors are not even seeing a patient, but they're holding a billing number or a license. So that's not helping the system in any way, shape, or form. So,
So true.
but I think Harold, you gotta look at the world of North America as a whole. Every province, every territory, every state is looking for more doctors and
Mhm.
nurses. And I'll swing it right back to what I said about a population strategy and an infrastructure strategy.
Mhm.
Infrastructure applies also to people, and we
Right.
must make sure that the people are there to,
Mhm.
handle the infrastructure. And I think that's one place where we have failed under the current administration to ensure that the appropriate number of nurses and doctors and the incentives are there to actually provide the care to islanders or Canadians as a whole.
Right. Well, I know yesterday, a couple of days ago, they had a meeting down at the mayor's office summit down in Summerside, and I understand there was a big turnout of doctors and nurses, and they were expressing similar concerns like what you have currently.
Mm,
And we really do hope that there is some time in the near future there is certainly some improvement in that area because yes, yesterday I had to get to Charlottetown.
mm,
Just imagine I had to go and see a doctor in Charlottetown, and I had to, my the doctor even said to me, "Well, you leave all the way from Bedeck or Summerside to." I said, "Yes, doctor. If I had to get as far as Nova Scotia to see a doctor, I would have
mm.
gone."
Yeah, yeah. Well, like it's something I fought for a number of years. I think we need to take the best practices from other jurisdictions. Now, up in Toronto, in that area, they were using ambulance buses several years ago.
Hmm.
And like, why have one ambulance for one patient when you can have an ambulance bus and 4 or 5 patients could be transferred from place to place using a doctor or one
Right.
nurse on board, right? And I finally convinced, I brought this up and brought it up, and we finally implemented that in Prince Edward Island after me talking about it for 3 or 4 years. Now, I'm not
Hmm.
saying, it was 100% my idea, but I'm saying that when people come up with ideas, we need to explore them and see if they will
Absolutely.
actually help the system, right?
I
Um,
agree.
so it's not a, it you got to give a lot of credit to our healthcare professionals, whether it be a nurse or a firefighter or a police officer or a doctor,
Hmm.
or LPNs or any of these people that are in critical care positions. I've always said that we need to spend more time on the floor and out from behind the desk. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I believe very strongly on. If I want to know how the fishermen are doing, go visit the wharf.
Hmm.
Don't call in somebody that does not even involved in fishing and have a
Right.
chat with them. If you want to fix the healthcare system, get on the floor of the hospital and actually see how the nurses are actually doing things and find out if they have any ideas that will actually help the system and improve the flow of traffic or people through so that they get the best care when they need it and in an efficient manner.
Yeah. Jamie, I mean, like, I know you for a while now, and I realize that you are across this island just about one of the hardest working members of the Legislative Assembly, and I think you will do a fantastic job into the future for sure. And I just want to wish you the best of luck. And I know for a fact that you are certainly going to get there. I mean, like, you're quite a popular politician, and I have never seen, even in Ontario, where I lived for such a long time, there was anybody or any politician who came close to you visiting so many people, so many ridings. I mean, this is phenomenal. I have never seen that in a politician, man. You
Well,
need to teach
I
a course to
appreciate
the politicians.
that. Thank you very much, Harold.
You're welcome. So, Jamie, let's look at the bigger picture in Canada. Canada's debt is about $1.5 trillion. Now, that's a massive debt, and we have a GDP of probably 1.9 to probably $2 trillion. What's the disparity there? What's happening there?